Oh, it auto-recorded. That's great. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We will get started at about 3:33 or so, just to give folks a few minutes to trickle in. Okay. Looks like we've got folks good to go. So welcome to our webinar about Stop the Shock 2024 public comments. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jules Good. I'm the programs coordinator at ASAN. I use they, them pronouns, and I will kick it over to AJ to introduce himself.
Hey y'all, my name is AJ Link. I am a policy analyst at the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. I am a Black dude with a beard. I'm wearing a pink hat and a white sweatshirt, and there is a gallery wall behind me. Today's agenda, we are going to talk about the Judge Rotenberg Center and Stop the Shock. We're going to talk about the rulemaking process. Then we'll talk about writing and submitting your public comments with a step-by-step guide, and then we will be doing Q&A.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I forgot to do a visual description of myself. I'm a white person with short blonde hair, wearing big, oddly shaped glasses. I've got some pictures and a door behind me. And just a few housekeeping things before we get started. We do have cart captioning available today, so you should be able to click the CC button and turn on captions if you would like to see those. If you have questions over the course of the webinar, if you could use the Q&A box to submit those questions, that would be really helpful, just because sometimes the chat gets really busy and we want to make sure we don't miss anything. Also, if you could please use the chat just for questions or comments that are relevant to the webinar, that would be awesome as we go forward, just because sometimes the chat popping up over and over again can be disruptive to people who are using screen readers. So we just ask that you try to limit chat use to things that are necessary. And with that, I will kick it over to AJ to do the first part of our presentation.
This is AJ speaking. Thank you, Jules. So we're going to talk about the Judge Rotenberg Center, or the JRC, and hashtag Stop the Shock. What is the JRC? The JRC, or the Judge Rotenberg Center, is an institution in Massachusetts. The JRC is the only place in the United States where skin shock devices are still in use. For many years, the JRC has used electric skin shock on people with disabilities. People were forced to wear wires. These wires can be used to shock them with a painful electric shock. The staff at the JRC uses a remote control to give these shocks. People get shocked for quote unquote dangerous behavior, but this can be as little as giving up without permission, or getting up without permission. So we're going to do some frequently asked questions or FAQs. The first one is, what are the dangers of electric shock? And electric shock is abuse. The skin shocks are very painful. It also causes trauma, which means long-term emotional harm. None of the quote unquote safeguards that the JRC uses will stop this trauma. The skin shocks can also cause burns. The next question is this like electroshock therapy or ECT? The answer is no. Electroshock therapy is when people use electricity on someone's brain. It is used for people with depression. Skin shock is only used to cause pain, which is supposed to make people change how they act. The next question is this the only treatment that will work for people currently on the device? The answer is no. This is the only facility in the United States that uses these devices. There are people around the US who are living in their communities without the use of electric shocks or other aversives. The next question is, how many people are currently on the device? How many people from your state are currently on the device? So we don't actually know. We know that most of the people at the JRC are not on the device, and it is a small group of residents who are on the device. The JRC does not make that information public. For people that are sent by state school districts, that information is usually accessible through individual states' departments of education. So now we're going to talk about hashtag Stop the Shock and the timeline. In 2013, the United Nations condemned the usage of skin shock devices as torture. In 2014, an expert panel at the FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration, said that skin shock devices should be banned. In 2020, the FDA passed a ban on the devices. This ban gave the JRC 180 days to stop using the device on people. Instead of no longer shocking people, the JRC went to court to stop the ban. In 2021, a court overturned the FDA's ban on a technicality. The court claimed the ban didn't count because the FDA could only ban things for all the ways they could be used, not one way they could be used. In 2022, ASAN and the disability community advocated for a new rule to be put in the end-of-year omnibus bill, which is a new law Congress makes every year to decide how to spend government money. This new rule passed and gave the FDA the power to ban the electric shock device. Today, people at the JRC are still being shocked. We have another chance right now to stop this through the new proposed FDA rule. So how does a new rule get made? The government agency decides to make a rule. The agency might ask for more information to help them write a draft of the rule. The agency could ask the public or other agencies. Next, the government agency writes a proposed rule. Remember, people do not have to follow a proposed rule unless it gets passed. The FDA has already written their proposed rule about electric shock devices. Next, the agency collects public comments on the rule. This is the step the FDA is at right now. We'll talk more about what public comments are in the next section. Next, the agency reads and answers the public comments. The agency has to read every comment. They need to write an answer to every comment, but they can group similar comments together and answer them all at once. That's why it is important to write your own unique comment. We will talk about how to make comments unique later. After answering all public comments, the agency decides if they will issue the rule. To issue a rule means to make or pass the rule. If they decide to issue the rule starts to get implemented. Implementing a rule means making sure that the rule is followed. So what do we want the FDA to do with the new rule? We want the FDA to pass a ban on all electric skin shock devices for behavior modification. We want the ban on all electric skin shock devices, not just the GED, because the JRC could modify the device slightly, give it a new name, and keep shocking people if the GED specifically is banned. Jules, you are muted.
Thank you. Thank you so much, AJ. I will take our next section here. I'm just gonna check the chat real quick. So our first one question that we have is, what does Stop the Shock mean? That's a great question. Stop the Shock is the name that we use for this campaign, or like the work that we're doing to stop the use of electric skin shock devices at the Judge Rotenberg Center. So we've discussed kind of the process of how a government agency can make a rule, and we mentioned public comments, which is a really important part of that process. So what is a public comment? A public comment is a way for people to share ideas to the government. Public comments let the government know what everyday people think about a rule or a law. People in the government have to read the public comments. Then they decide whether or not to make the rule. Anyone can write a public comment. You do not need to be an expert to write a comment. And this is something I really want to make sure that we highlight in this presentation. A lot of people think that they need to have a special degree or have a certain job or have some kind of special background knowledge in order to write a public comment. But the point of public comments is that the government wants to hear from everyday people about how a proposed rule will impact them. And so it's important for organizations and people who do have that expertise to write comments, but it's equally as important for people who have lived experience or who just have thoughts about the proposed rule to write public comments as well. So anyone can write a public comment, and anyone should on this issue. So more on what is a public comment. We just want to acknowledge sending in a public comment can be confusing, but it's really important. And our goal with this presentation is to make the process as not confusing as possible for you. The government needs to hear from people that it doesn't usually hear from. The government needs to hear from autistic people, especially on this issue. That is how the government can make policies that help us. So we're going to go through the parts of a public comment. I will read kind of the titles of these parts right now, and then we're going to go through each of those parts in more detail. So the first part is to introduce yourself. The second part is to make your stance clear. The third part is to explain why you want the FDA to ban electric skin shock. The fourth part is to tell a story, which is optional. You don't have to do that. And the fifth part is to share sources, which is also optional. And I'm going to pause here because I think we have a few questions kicking around. So Eli, would you mind reading those for us? Eli, I think you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
So the first comment was from Colby, who is asking to be added to our notification list as they are with the Mazzarella with Citizens Commission on Human Rights in Boston, the legislative director. And then the second comment was from Lee, who said, I want to reach out to people and organizations who do not know about the Judge Rotenberg Center or electroshock devices or how the JRC uses them. Does anyone have a short video or short summary that we can use to reach out to people and organizations who know nothing about the electroshock devices or how the JRC uses them? And
Yes, that's a great question. We do have some of those resources and we will be getting into them a little bit in this presentation.
I think Dean also linked around the JRC in the chat as well. So
Yes.
got that link that Dean dropped. There's also somebody with another question in the title. For the record, I am against the use of electric shock for behavior modification, but let me play devil's advocate for a moment. How do you answer to the schools parents who have children at JRC saying that they were referred from other agencies that use positive behavioral supports failed? Their children have significant self-abusive behavior and will literally jump through plate glass windows, puncture their ears with pencils, and gouge out their eyes, and literally bite off their fingers. They acknowledge that the JRC treatment is keeping their children alive. I think this also maybe is not relevant since the electric devices are not used on computers. Go ahead and maybe address that if you want.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So this is something that that we get asked quite a bit, or that like proponents of electric shock will bring up pretty often. And I think what's really important to drive home is that the JRC is the only place in the country that is using these devices. And that means that there are hundreds at least, or a not insignificant amount of other people across the country and around the world who have significant challenges with self-injurious behavior or some of the things that you mentioned, who are able to receive help and treatment that is not electric skin shock, that is not a method that is condemned as torture. And I think that sometimes we don't want to fall into the trap of thinking that the people at the JRC are somehow the most disabled people in the world, or that any level of disability would warrant being treated this way or would warrant the use of electric shock devices, because regardless of somebody's disabilities, it is never okay to torture them, to subject them to physical harm. I see two other questions in the chat, one from, or in the Q&A box, one from an anonymous attendee, which is, can people under the age of 18 submit a comment? That's a great question. To my knowledge, there isn't a restriction on that. AJ, are you aware of any rule against that?
This is AJ, I am not.
Okay, yeah, I'll double check on that and confirm, but I do think that people under 18 can submit comments. And then David Clark asks, what are the replacements? I assume you're asking like, what are the alternatives for electric skin shock? We are not going to get too much into that today, just because that's not really the focus of this presentation. But know that there are alternatives out there that have been successfully implemented in lots of different places across the country. Okay, so now that we have kind of introduced our parts of a public comment, we'll go into these in more detail. So the first is introducing yourself. Sharing a bit about who you are helps the FDA understand who is impacted by this issue. Here are some examples of things you could say. I have a disability. I am autistic. I take care of someone with a disability. I have a family member with a disability. I work with a group of self-advocates. I work with a disability rights group. So basically anything you might want to share about yourself that can help the FDA understand how you are impacted by this issue or why you care about it. The next part is super important, and that is making your stance clear. The FDA has to read a lot of comments, so your stance on the ban has to be easy to find and as clear as possible. Here are some examples of things you could say. I want the FDA to ban electric skin shock devices. I want the FDA to ban contingent electric shock for behavior modification. I support a proposed rule to ban aversive electric shock. So those are just kind of 3 different ways of saying essentially the same thing. And we just want to make that message really clear in our comments that we support the ban. We want the FDA to ban these devices. Then explain why you want the FDA to ban electric skin shock. Here are some examples of things you could say. It is painful for people who get shocked. The electric shock device is more powerful than a taser. People get shocked for things like not taking off their coat. They get shocked for screaming out in pain after being shocked. So basically just explaining a little bit more detail about why you want the FDA to ban these devices. Here are some other examples of things you could say. The electric shock device is inhumane. People should not get treated that way. The United Nations said the electric shock device was torture. There are lots of other ways to help people with disabilities without shocking them. People with disabilities across the United States don't get the device used on them. So those first 3 parts, introducing yourself, making your stance clear, and explaining why you want to ban the device, are the most important things. These last 2 parts are optional pieces that you can include if you want to, that just kind of strengthen your comment and also help to make it more unique from other comments. So one of those things is telling a story. If you have questions about how to share your story, we have a toolkit about that that we'll send out a link to. Make sure to only share your story, like a personal story, if it relates to the electric shock device, because if we include a story that's not related, it makes the comment kind of confusing. So we want to make sure that any other stories or details that we're sharing serve to support the point that we want to ban electric skin shock devices. So here are some examples of things that you could tell a story about. A time that you or someone you know was hurt by an electric shock device. A time that someone helped you to stop hurting yourself without using an electric shock device. For example, some autistic people will bang their heads into walls or hurt themselves in other ways. The JRC says that the only way to stop this is with the electric shock device. This is wrong. You can tell the FDA about your experiences. The last part is sharing sources, which is also optional, but is another good thing to include. Sources are proof that show that what you're saying is true. Things like research papers and news reports are kinds of sources. Sharing sources that are true and that have facts in them can make your comment stronger. Here are some examples of some good sources. Fact-checked news articles, like those from the Associated Press, articles that have been peer-reviewed, so like academic articles, the ASAN website or toolkits. We have all kinds of thoroughly researched materials on our website that you can pull from. You can copy and paste links to your sources in your comment if you want to. So I'm going to go through 2 example comments here, and I'm going to read the full comment, and then I'm going to go back and kind of highlight how the comment kind of checks each of those boxes that we just talked about of the components of a comment. So in this example comment, Johan writes a comment and he says, I am a person with a disability. I want the FDA to pass a rule banning the use of electric shock devices for behavioral modification. It is painful for the people being shocked. There are many other ways to help disabled people stop hurting themselves. We don't need to use electric shock. Please pass this ban. So in this example, Johan introduced himself. He says, I'm a person with a disability. He makes his stance clear. I want the FDA to pass a rule banning the use of electric shock devices for behavioral modification. He explains more about why he wants the FDA to pass the rule. It is painful for people being shocked, etc. And he also reinforces his position at the end. He says, we don't need to use electric shock. Please pass this ban, just to make it super extra clear. Here's another example comment. Rashida writes a comment. She says, I am autistic. I want the FDA to pass a rule banning the use of electric shock devices for behavioral modification. I used to hurt myself when there was too much going on around me. I got help to learn other ways to calm down when overwhelmed. I did not need electric shock to help me do this. There is no reason for these devices to be used on disabled people. The Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, a national nonprofit run by and for autistic people, has written about the importance of banning electric skin shock. And then there's a link to a page. So she introduces herself. I'm autistic. She makes her stance clear. I want the FDA to pass a rule. She shares a personal story that's relevant to the issue. And then she includes a source as well. And she includes the link to that source. So she's got all 5 of those things that we just talked about in her example comment. And as you can see, both of these comments we just shared are just a couple sentences long. Some people will post comments that are, much longer, more detailed, have a lot more sources. And that's cool too if you want to do that. But it really can just be a few sentences, and it's really impactful for the FDA to hear from you, even if it's just a short comment. So before we move into how to submit your comment, I'm just going to check on our chat here. Oh, yes, thank you. I know I can be a fast speaker. Thank you for that note. I will slow down.
And also read the comments if you would do, Jules. Excellent point. The arrogance to claim that the JRC is the only place on earth where disabled individuals who engage in self-injurious or violent behavior can be successfully treated is astounding. Also an excellent point that torture is not treatment. It's also worth taking time to quote the survivors who have spoken out against what was done. And then another comment. Hi, I'm Paula. If anyone is interested in getting involved in the documentary we are working on about this topic, please contact me at landrypaula@gmail.com. Thank you to everyone here. And then let's all share the ASAN toolbox with people you know who stopped hurting themselves or others using positive methods.
Thank you, Eli. I see in the Q&A box, so Gina asks, would this ban trump both legislations in Massachusetts and New York? That's a great question. So outside of what the FDA is working on, which is a federal regulation, in Massachusetts and New York, they have state level laws that they're considering that would impact the JRC in some way. So the JRC is located in Massachusetts. The Massachusetts law bans the use of aversives, which includes electric skin shock. And so if the FDA ban passed, it would accomplish part of the same thing as what the Massachusetts law is looking to do. But I think the Massachusetts law, at least the last time I looked at it, included even a broader definition of aversive. So it would ban not only electric shock devices, but also other ways that the JRC is using aversive punishment on its residents. The legislation in New York would basically stop New York from sending its students to the JRC. So there are a number of students who live in New York who are sent to Massachusetts to attend the JRC. And that law, if it passes, would stop that from happening. The FDA ban would not stop New York from sending students to the JRC, but it stops the devices from being used. An anonymous person asks, so I can post a URL or should I use APA or other style to cite sources? Great question. You can do either. I am pretty sure that you cannot, if you type your comment in the comment box, which we'll talk about here in a minute, I don't think you can add hyperlinks. So you would have to just like copy and paste the whole URL. If you submit your comment as a PDF, so like if you upload it as a separate document, then you could hyperlink it and use whatever citation style you want. So it really kind of depends how you choose to submit the comment, but just copy and pasting a URL is totally good and adequate. Another person asks, so it will completely outlaw these devices nationwide, right? Since it would be a federal law. Yes, it would ban the use of electric skin shock devices in every state across the US.
And then Alyssa Hunt in the chat says, I was told that the last ban took 4 years from proposal to the 2020 approval. Will this take as long?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, we really have no way of knowing. The comment period is 60 days. So it closes at the end of May. And at that point, we really don't know how long it will take for the FDA to make a decision about the rule. So we hope it doesn't take as long, obviously, but there's no way for us to know for sure.
Would you like me to continue reading comments, or would you like to continue?
Can you say that again, Eli? Sorry.
Would you like me to continue reading comments? Because there's no more questions that I can see. It's just comments at this point. Or would you like to continue with the how to submit part?
Let's continue just for the sake of time. Thank you. Okay, so how to submit your comment. This link is a shortened version of the link that is just like easy for sharing purposes. You don't need to like memorize this or write it down or anything. We just want you to know that it exists. And it's a useful short link to use if you have to meet like a certain character limit, if you're posting about it on social media or things like that. But where that link takes you is to the Federal Register website. And this website is the website that government agencies use to collect public comments on proposed rules. So if you follow that link, it will take you to this page, and then you're going to go ahead and click on the green button that says submit a formal comment. You can see here, so there's the box labeled comment that has a red asterisk next to it. Any of the boxes in this form that have a red asterisk next to them are required, which means that it won't let you submit the form unless you fill those boxes out. So just make sure you pay attention to that. So you can write your comment in the comment box. What I find to be easiest is writing my comment in another document and then copying and pasting it into the comment box when it's finished. Because sometimes if you want to leave and come back to it, it's just easier to make edits in a separate document. The what is your comment about drop-down menu is kind of confusing and it's not required, so don't worry about it. Upload files. So if you want to attach, if you want to submit your comment as a file attachment, like a PDF or a Word document from your computer, you can do that here. You'll just have to write something in the comment box to be able to submit the form. So you can just write like, I submitted my comment as a PDF, or just anything in that box. If you would like to get confirmation that your comment was submitted and be able to track it to see like if the FDA responds to it, then you can include your email, but you don't have to. And if you do include your email, it won't be posted with your comments. So like you don't need to worry about anyone else seeing it. But that's just if you want to track your comments, so you don't have to do that. Then you will decide how you want to submit. So for a lot of us, we will be submitting as individuals. If we are part of an organization that's working on this, we might decide to submit as an organization, or you can submit anonymously. So again, pay attention to where those red asterisks are. Oops, sorry, let me go back here. Okay, if you're an individual, you'll do your first and last name. Those are the only things that are required. If you submit as an organization, you'll choose your organization type from the drop-down menu and the organization name. And if you submit anonymously, then it won't ask you for any further information below that. So there won't be any name or any identifying information attached to your comment. Then you have to make sure you click the I read and understand the statement above box. And that just tells the FDA that you understand that your comment is publicly viewable by people who are looking at the comments on the internet. And then you click submit a comment, and that's it. You've submitted your comment. I am going to...
in the chat.
Oh, yep, go ahead, Eli.
Okay, so the first question in the chat is, will the contents of this presentation be sent to everyone afterward? I will need to leave. And then there are 4 more.
Cool. Yes, we will share the link to the recording of this and some follow-up materials afterwards. So yes, thank you for that question.
David Clark asks, are shock devices used in other countries like Germany?
I do not know the answer to that question. Yeah, not sure.
Martin Mercer asks, I'm from the UK, so what should I do?
Thanks for being here, Martin. So you can still submit a comment if you want. There's no like residency or citizenship requirement. So you can follow the same instructions here as everyone else as far as submitting a comment.
Is my sound better now for the captioner? Can the captioner give me a thumbs up if this is a better level, or should I be elevating my voice even louder than this? Okay. The next question is from Felice, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Elisu. What is the federal bill called?
Yeah, Felice, good question. So this actually isn't a federal bill. It's a proposed rule, which I know sounds like a silly distinction. So a bill is something that goes through Congress. This isn't going through Congress. This is just being decided by the FDA. And so the official name of the proposed rule is on the top of the screen here. It's ban devices, proposal to ban electric stimulation devices for self-injurious or aggressive behavior.
And then the last question is from Lee Tilson. Oh, no, sorry. There's actually 2 more coming in. So the next question is from Lee Tilson. Is there someone we should talk with if we want to help reach out to organizations that have taken positions on related issues? And they list a few things they're thinking of, such as organizations that work with children, pediatricians, teachers, Boy Scouts, organizations that have taken positions against death penalty or torture, churches, etc.
Yeah, Lee, I think a lot of the materials that we'll share at the end of this will be helpful in giving you talking points that you can use if you want to encourage other organizations to take action on this. But I would also be happy to meet with you individually if you want to like talk through some ideas. So feel free to reach out to ASAN and they'll direct you to me if you would like to do that. And I'll also share my email at the end here too.
And then an anonymous question is asking, are there any downsides to submitting a comment anonymously?
Not that I'm aware of. I know it doesn't make a difference in how like where the comment is posted or what order they're posted in. So I don't think there's any downside to submitting anonymously. Great. Yes, Lee, I see your question of how to contact me. I will put my email address in the chat and in the follow-up email for this after the presentation is over. And then I see one more question from David. Do other countries have bills banning the device? I don't know the answer to that, David. We are just working on this issue in the United States right now. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that right now. Okay, great. So we are coming up to the end here. So what happens after you submit your comment? You won't hear anything back from the FDA when you send your comment. So you're not going to get like an email from them or anything like that directly to you. You might not hear back from them at all, but your public comment will still get read by the FDA because they are required to read every single comment. The FDA will read and respond to all of the comments. They may reply to groups of similar comments with one response. So on the page where the comments are posted, once they start responding to them, those responses will be visible there. And then the FDA will decide if it will issue the rule. If they issue the rule, it will start to be implemented. And this means that people will have to start following the rule. So in this case, that would mean the JRC has to stop using electric skin shock devices. So that is what we hope will happen. Last little bit here we want to talk about is self-care. So this is in the context of submitting comments, but even just like attending a webinar like this today, this is obviously a distressing issue. You know, it's really difficult to talk about people being treated in such a horrible way. So make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Submitting comments on an issue like this can be distressing. It can bring up a lot of big feelings. So make sure you listen to your body and take a break if you need to. Take time for self-care. Here are some examples of what self-care can look like. But of course, you know you best. So however you want to take care of yourself is great. But creating art, stimming, exercise, going outside, journaling, writing blog posts about other things, playing with pets or getting support from service or support animals, watching TV shows and movies, watching funny videos on the internet, really anything that brings you joy. It's important to make time and space for that when you're doing this work. So that is the end of the presentation. I know we answered several questions as we were going along here, but if there are other questions, feel free to ask them now. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. I see one in the chat. Oh, Eli answered that. Okay, great.
I mean, I can read it, but I did reply to it in the chat. And I don't see any more coming in through the Q&A function.
Okay. Well, if there are no other questions. Oh, great question from Jazz. What are other ways we can participate with ASAN after we submit this comment? I love this question. We have lots of different ways that people can get involved on lots of other issues that we work on. So I think probably your best bet to get started would be subscribing to our newsletter, because that is where we post a lot of information about the work that we're doing and ways that people can help. Bean just put a link to the newsletter and how you can subscribe to it in the chat, so feel free to do that. And follow us on social media, because we also post about a lot of opportunities there. I'm seeing
There's a question from Lee. Is there a way to find out what other organizations have taken a position on this?
Trying to remember. AJ, did we have a recent letter about this?
Yeah, so a few organizations sent a letter when Congress was working on the legislation to send the proposed rule. You can look that up on the CCD website. You can also follow the StopTheShock hashtag, so hashtag StopTheShock, see what other organizations have been doing to work on this.
Lee's follow-up comment to that was so that we can focus on reaching out to new organizations. And then there was some thank yous from Grace and David. And then David asked, do you have any contacts for more info from the presenters? Please send.
Yeah, thank you, David. So, yes, Dean put in the chat, you can email info@autisticadvocacy.org if you have questions or if you need additional resources, but we will send out the slides and the recording from today to everyone who registered. One other thing I wanted to add is that we have a video on our YouTube page that's like a 5-minute version of just the like, what is this issue and how do you submit a comment about it? So if you ever need a reminder of like the steps and you want to watch a short video about it, that's on our YouTube page. And it's also in Instagram Reel form on our Instagram page. Yes, we did. Eli, I'll read it out loud here. So earlier, Anna Nelson had asked, I have a friend who is a survivor of electric skin shock. I'm reluctant to tell his story as it is not mine. I'm reluctant to ask him to submit a comment. What is your professional advice? And Eli said, I would talk to your friend about submitting a comment and see if he wants to tell it himself or doesn't mind you sharing some general information about his experience without identifying him specifically. You also can submit a comment saying you have friends who have been negatively impacted by these shock devices without having to give specific details or identifying information, as that is factual without actually sharing the personal details. Another question in the Q&A box, how can we help prevent the JRC from appealing again? Is there any way to do this? That's a great question. AJ, do you have thoughts on that?
I think the work that was done to get Congress to give the FDA authority to reauthorize the rule should be sufficient. Obviously, the JRC is most likely to do whatever it can to make sure that this rule is not implemented. But for now, the advocacy work has mostly been done in terms of rectifying the previous situation that allowed for the JRC to appeal.
And Zach is, again, perfect. You've already got it, Jules. Zach was asking for the link. You got it. Do you want me to read Matthew's comment? The JRC will surely sue again. Hopefully their luck will finally run out this time. Jules, you're muted.
Thank you, sorry. I just said I put that link to submit to where you can submit your comment in the chat, but we will send it out by email to everyone as well. Awesome. Well, if there are no other questions for now, I will go ahead and close us out. Definitely feel free to visit our website, follow us on social media to stay up to date on what's going on with this, and expect an email pretty shortly with today's recording, the slides, and a few links. Oop. Oh, the link came up as an error. Okay, here, let me share the direct link.
There is one more question from Lee Tilson. Has anyone considered Saul Alinsky tactics?
I do not know what that means.
I'm thinking maybe they're suggesting organizations. Because Lee was the one asking about what organizations to connect with and what their stances are. So I'm thinking maybe, oh no, it's a type of tactic. Saul Alinsky 6.
Yeah, oh, let me put, I said I was going to do that, so. I'm popping my email into the chat right now. If anyone wants to email me directly. Oh, okay, Saul Alinsky was a community organizer who taught community groups to stand up to Mayor Daley of Chicago and kick his butt. That's good to know. I don't, I think our tactic really is to just get as many people as we can to submit public comments, because that seems to be the most effective way to get the FDA their attention at this moment. But yes, Lee, I just put my email in the chat. Feel free to email me. We can set up a time to talk. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close us out. Thank you all so much for attending, and looking forward to seeing y'all at future events. Thank you.